Hello and welcome to SCI Tech. Today my topic is about Introduction to Virtualization. What is virtualization and why we need it? This is an essential technology for huge business environments. Virtualization is a concept that allows you to create multiple environments or resources from a single physical hardware. Let's take the example of the hard disk that you are using in your laptop. You just have a single hard disk in your laptop and you have divided it into two partitions. That is virtualization. It means you have divided the hard disk virtually. I mean you store half of your files in this partition and the other drive. So this is virtualization actually. But now let's talk about Microsoft environments. In Microsoft environment you might need multiple servers or multiple machines. So for that you have to be familiar with hypervisors. Let's see what is hypervisors. Actually there are two types of hypervisors, type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. Let me draw a diagram for type 1 hypervisor. Actually, let's consider that you have a physical server and on that server you have installed a hypervisor. Okay, let's first know what is hypervisor. Hypervisors is actually a program that enable you to host several different virtual machines on a single hardware, like this hardware. Let's assume this is a server, a physical server, and you have directly installed the hypervisor. The one type is ESXi 5. So this is a hypervisor. I have installed it on a single physical hard drive, and in that hypervisor I can now install many different virtual machines. For example, I have installed 3 virtual machines on this ESXi 5 platform. Number one is, let's say, Linux. Number second is server, and the other is, for example, Unix. So at a single time all these virtual machines can use the resources of this server, and the responsible for these resources is actually this hypervisor. There are many other hypervisors, type 1 hypervisors, which is Citrix, KVM, or even Microsoft Windows Server hypervisor. So type 1 hypervisor is directly installed on the physical hard drive, and then we installed many other different operating systems that uses the resources of this server. If you don't use hypervisor, then you are not able to use multiple servers or machines. You will just use a single operating system on the server. So this hypervisor is responsible to provide the resources, which is the hard disk, the RAM, the processor, etc. So for example, if this server have for example 8 GB RAM, so some of the RAM will use this virtual machine, some will use this one, and some will use this used by this virtual machine. For example, let's give it 4 GB and also this one 4 GB and 4 GB to this one. So it means that this hypervisor divided the physical RAM into virtual RAM. So these are actually divided virtually by this hypervisor. Now let's talk about type 2 hypervisor. Now again, for example, if you have a physical hardware and this time you are using an operating system on this physical machine. For example, if you have a laptop and you have installed an operating system, and on that operating system you install the hypervisor, and again on that hypervisor you install different virtual machines or VMs. So type 2 hypervisor is like a software. We install a software on our host operating system, and then we install VMs on that hypervisor. For example, this is the physical machine. And you have installed Windows 7. So this is the host operating system. We call it a host operating system, and this operating system is hosting VMs which are installed in the hypervisor, the type 2 hypervisor. So the type 2 hypervisor can be well, type 2 hypervisors are mostly used for testing purposes, because not anyone can purchase many servers or many laptops or many computers. They will use a single computer, and they will put a host operating system like Windows, and then they will install the virtualization software, which is VMware, or another one which is VirtualBox. There is also a VMware Fusion available, but I like VMware Workstation, and I have installed the VMware Workstation here. So for type 2 hypervisor, as I said, we install on a physical machine, and then on that physical machine we install Windows 7, and after that we install this the virtual machine hypervisor, which is let's say VMware Workstation, and on that workstation or hypervisor we install different VMs. VM1, for example, VM1, VM2, or VM3, this is your choice, depend upon your requirements. As I used their Linux server or Unix. So this is the difference between type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. Type 1 is directly installed on the physical hardware, and on that we install the virtual machines or VMs. Type 2 hypervisor, on a physical machine we install a host operating system, and on that operating system we install the hypervisor type 2, and after that we install VMs inside this virtual machine, VMware Workstation, sorry. Windows 7, window 8, and there window 10. These VMs are also called guest operating system, and the hypervisors are the type 1 hypervisor is a host, and this Windows 7 is also the host. It means that this hypervisor is hosting these VMs, and this Windows 7 is hosting these VMs. Let me show you the practical example of type 2 hypervisor. I have installed the VMware workstation on my Windows 8, and I am using different VMs in a single type 2 hypervisor, as this VMware workstation is my hypervisor type 2, and inside this I'm using different VMs like Windows Server and Windows 7. So these three are my VMs which I'm using in this hypervisor type 2. As I have assigned 1 GB to this VM, 1 GB to this, and 1 to this one. I have a total of 8 GB RAM, but as per my need I have just assigned 1 GB each. Now again, in real businesses or businesses environments, we always use type 1 hypervisors because of their better performance, features, and high storage. But the type 2 hypervisor we just use for testing purposes, because we can't afford to buy too many machines, so that is why we just use the type 2 hypervisor for testing purposes and for practices. So this was the story of virtualization. Thanks for watching.